The spaceport of Epsilon 9 was alive with activity, a chaotic mix of beings from every corner of the galaxy. Ships of all shapes and sizes docked at the sprawling station, their hulls painted with symbols that marked them as traders, diplomats, or mercenaries. Beings shuffled about, some tall and spindly, others short and stout, and a few so strange they seemed to defy logic. Among them were humans, still newcomers to the interstellar stage, but already making waves with their reputation for being unpredictable and fiercely territorial. Captain Elias Kane stood near one of the bustling market stalls, his sharp eyes scanning the crowd. He had come to Epsilon 9 to oversee a shipment of advanced mining equipment bound for Earth's colonies. His son, Liam, trailed close behind him, clutching a small bag of tools needed for repairs back home. At 10 years old, Liam was curious and full of energy, traits that often got him into trouble. Today, however, trouble wasn't something anyone could have foreseen. As they moved through the crowded corridors, Liam's attention drifted to a glowing display showcasing alien artifacts. Without thinking, he stepped closer, bumping into someone who had been standing nearby. That someone turned out to be an officer of the Voldraxis species, a towering figure clad in shimmering black armor etched with golden insignias. The Voldraxis were known throughout the galaxy for their arrogance and military might, and this particular officer carried himself with an air of superiority that made even other aliens uneasy. "What is this?" The officer growled, his voice deep and guttural. His four-fingered hand shot out, grabbing Liam by the collar of his shirt and lifting him off the ground. "You dare touch me, primitive!" Liam gasped, his feet dangling helplessly above the floor. His wide eyes filled with fear as the alien's grip tightened. Around them, the crowd froze, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of horror and fascination. No one dared to intervene, not the merchants selling exotic wares, not the diplomats hurrying to their next meeting, and certainly not the other aliens who knew better than to cross a Voldraxis officer. "Let him go," a woman shouted, pushing her way forward. She was a human trader named Mara, her face flushed with anger. "He's just a child." The officer sneered down at her, his elongated teeth bared in a menacing grin. "Silence, worm. This creature has disrespected me, and I will teach it a lesson." Before Mara could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "Put my son down." It was Captain Kane, striding toward the commotion with purpose. His boots echoed against the metal floor, drawing every eye in the vicinity. Kane's presence commanded respect. His broad shoulders, weathered face, and piercing gaze spoke of years spent fighting battles no one else would dare face. For a moment, the officer hesitated, perhaps sensing the danger radiating from the human captain. But pride won over caution. With a snarl, he shoved Liam aside, sending the boy sprawling onto the ground. Tears streamed down Liam's face as he scrambled to his feet, clutching his arm where the alien's fingers had left angry red marks. Kane's jaw clenched, his fists tightening at his sides. Every fiber of his being screamed to strike back, to make the alien pay for what he had done. But he forced himself to remain calm. Violence here would only escalate the situation, potentially sparking a conflict humanity wasn't ready for. Instead, he knelt beside Liam, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You okay, buddy?" Kane asked softly, though his tone carried an edge of barely contained fury. Liam nodded, wiping his tears with the back of his sleeve. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to." "It's not your fault," Kane interrupted, his voice firm. Rising to his full height, he fixed the Voldraxis officer with a glare that could cut steel. "If you wanted to teach someone a lesson, you should have picked someone your own size." The officer laughed, a harsh grating sound that echoed through the corridor. "Your kind amuses me, human. You strut around like you belong among the stars, but you are nothing more than insects crawling up from the dirt. Perhaps it is time we reminded you of your place." Kane took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Though the alien towered over him, Kane showed no sign of intimidation. "Careful what you say next," he warned, his voice low and dangerous. "Because if you don't let this go right now, I promise you'll regret it." The officer's laughter faded, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. For a moment, it seemed as though he might press the issue further. But then, with a dismissive wave of his hand, he turned and strode away, his armor boots clanking against the floor. The crowd parted before him, murmuring nervously as he disappeared into the thronged dot as soon as the alien was out of sight. Kane exhaled sharply, releasing the tension that had coiled inside him. He glanced down at Liam, brushing a strand of hair from the boy's forehead. "You did nothing wrong, understand? Don't ever think otherwise." But despite his words, Kane couldn't shake the feeling of unease settling in his chest. Something about the officer's parting remark lingered in his mind, a subtle threat wrapped in arrogance. If the Valdresses thought they could intimidate humanity into submission, they were sorely mistaken. And if push came to shove, Kane knew exactly how to send that message loud and clear. For now, though, there was nothing to do but return to their ship and prepare for the journey home. As they walked away from the market, Kane kept one hand on Liam's shoulder, guiding him through the sea of aliens. The boy remained quiet, his earlier excitement replaced by a somberness that tugged at Kane's heart. Little did either of them know, this encounter was far from over. Back aboard the Council warship Aegis Prime, wheels were already turning, setting the stage for a confrontation that would change everything, for humanity, for the Valdraxis, and for the fragile balance of power in the galaxy dot and somewhere deep within Kane. A spark ignited, a determination to ensure that no human child would ever endure such humiliation again. Whatever it took, whatever price had to be paid, he would protect his people. Because that's what humans did when pushed too far. They fought back. The massive Council warship Aegis Prime loomed like a mountain in the void of space. Its sleek silver hull stretched for miles, bristling with weapons and sensors that could detect even the faintest whisper of movement. Inside, the ship was a labyrinth of corridors, chambers, and meeting halls where representatives from countless species gathered to discuss matters of galactic importance, or so they claimed. For many, the Council was little more than a stage for posturing and politics, a place where power was hoarded by those who already had too much. Captain Elias Kane stood at the edge of the grand chamber, his arms crossed as he surveyed the scene before him. The room was circular, with rows of floating platforms arranged in tiers around a central podium. Each platform bore the emblem of a different species, their leaders seated on thrones or cushions depending on their customs. Humans had been granted a modest spot near the back, a clear sign of their junior status among the galaxy's elder races. Kane didn't care about the seating arrangement. He cared about justice. Beside him sat Ambassador Tessa Rhodes, a seasoned diplomat tasked with representing humanity's interests. She adjusted her glasses nervously, glancing at Kane as though seeking reassurance. "This isn't going to be easy," she murmured under her breath. "The Valdraxis have friends here." Kane nodded grimly. "Friends or not, they're not walking away from this unscathed. Not if I have anything to say about it." At the center of the chamber, the Valdraxis representative rose to his feet. He was an imposing figure, his armor polished to a mirror-like shine, his golden insignias gleaming under the artificial light. His name was Commander Vrax, and he radiated authority with every step he took toward the podium. As he began to speak, the room fell silent, all eyes fixed on him. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," Vrax began, his voice booming through the chamber. "Today, we gather to address an act of blatant disrespect committed against one of our finest officers. A human child, yes, a mere child assaulted my subordinate without provocation, tarnishing the honor of the Valdraxis people. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some aliens exchanged skeptical glances, while others nodded approvingly, clearly swayed by Vrax's commanding presence. Kane clenched his fists, resisting the urge to shout out loud. Assaulted? The audacity of the claim made his blood boil. Vrax continued, pacing slowly as he spoke. This incident is not isolated. It reflects the arrogance and ignorance of humanity itself. They strut onto the galactic stage, claiming equality with species that have mastered the stars for millennia. Yet they lack discipline, respect, and basic decorum. If we do not act decisively, this behavior will only escalate. He paused dramatically, letting his words sink in. Then, pointing a finger directly at the human delegation, he declared, "I demand that these primitives be punished. Make no mistake, failure to hold them accountable will be seen as an endorsement of their actions. And should that happen, the consequences will be severe." The chamber erupted into chaos. Representatives shouted over one another, some defending humanity while others sided with Vrax. Amid the noise, Kane leaned closer to Ambassador Rhodes. "We need to respond now. Let me handle this." Before she could protest, Kane stepped forward, his boots echoing against the metal floor. Every eye turned to him as he approached the podium, his posture unwavering despite the weight of the stairs. When he reached the microphone, he took a deep breath and began to speak. "Commander Vrax," Kane said, his voice steady but laced with steel. "You accuse us of arrogance and disrespect. But let's talk about what really happened. My son, a 10-year-old boy, accidentally bumped into your officer. An accident. No harm intended. And how did your officer respond? By grabbing him, humiliating him, and threatening him with violence. Tell me, Commander, is that what passes for discipline among your kind?" Vrax's expression darkened, his lip curling into a snarl. "Do not twist the truth, human. Your child disrespected my officer deliberately. This was no accident, no?" Kane shot back, his voice rising. "Then explain why witnesses saw him standing there, minding his own business, until your officer decided to make an example of him. Explain why my son came back to me crying, scared half to death because your officer treated him like garbage. Is that how you expect us to earn respect? By bullying children?" The chamber grew quieter, the tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Even those who had initially sided with Vrax seemed uneasy, shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Kane seized the moment, pressing his advantage. "We're not asking for special treatment," he continued, his tone firm. "All we want is fairness. If your officer felt disrespected, fine. He should have addressed it calmly, like any civilized being would. Instead, he chose to lash out, proving that the real problem here isn't my son. It's your officer's lack of control." Vrax slammed his fist against the podium, the sound reverberating through the chamber. "Enough! You dare lecture me on civility? Your kind has no concept of honor, no sense of order. Perhaps it is time someone taught you." Kane met his glare head-on, refusing to back down. "If teaching us means throwing tantrums and abusing children, then maybe we don't want to learn." The argument raged on for hours, each side digging in their heels. Allies of the Valdraxis argued that humanity needed to be reined in, citing past incidents where humans had acted impulsively or aggressively. Others pointed out that the Valdraxis were known for their brutality and questioned whether punishing a child was justified. Through it all, Kane remained resolute, his arguments cutting through the noise with precision. But when the final vote was cast, the outcome was painfully clear. The council refused to punish the Valdraxis officer, citing insufficient evidence and the need to maintain diplomatic stability. Humanity's protests fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the majority's desire to avoid conflict with such a powerful faction. As the session adjourned, Kane stormed out of the chamber, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Ambassador Rhodes hurried after him, her heels clicking against the floor. "Elias, wait. We can still appeal. There's got to be another way." "There isn't," Kane snapped, stopping abruptly to face her. "They've made their decision. Now it's our turn to make ours." Rhodes frowned, her brow furrowing with concern. "What are you saying? We can't just ignore the Council's ruling. That'll start a war." Kane's eyes narrowed, his jaw tightening. "Maybe that's exactly what we need. Maybe it's time they realized we won't roll over and take this lying down. Harm one of us, and you harm all of us. That's the message we're sending, and trust me, they'll hear it loud and clear." With that, he turned and strode away, leaving Rhodes staring after him in stunned silence. She wanted to argue, to reason with him, but deep down, she knew it was futile. Kane wasn't the type to back down once he'd made up his mind. And judging by the fire in his eyes, whatever he had planned wouldn't end quietly. Back aboard the human delegation shuttle, Kane stared out the window at the vast expanse of stars. His mind raced with possibilities, scenarios, and strategies. The Voldraxis thought they could push humanity around, treat them like insignificant pests. But they had underestimated one critical factor. Humans didn't forget. They didn't forgive. And above all, they didn't give up. Whatever it took, Kane vowed silently, the Voldraxis would pay for what they had done. Not just for Liam, but for every human who had ever been dismissed, bullied, or belittled by those who thought themselves superior. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson, one written in the language of defiance and resolve. And Captain Elias Kane would make sure they never forgot it. The Iron Gauntlet hung silently in orbit around Earth, its sleek hull glinting faintly in the light of the distant sun. It was humanity's most advanced battleship, a marvel of engineering born from centuries of survival on one of the harshest planets in the galaxy. Its crew, handpicked for their skill and determination, moved with purpose through the ship's corridors, preparing for what lay ahead. Captain Elias Kane stood on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back as he gazed out at the stars dot behind him. The strike team gathered. Each member had been chosen not just for their abilities, but for their loyalty to humanity. There was Sergeant Mira Chun, a veteran soldier whose reflexes were unmatched. Lieutenant Theo Grayson, a tech expert capable of hacking into even the most secure alien systems. Dr. Elena Ruiz, a scientist who specialized in adapting human weapons for use against extraterrestrials. And Corporal Javier Morales, a demolitions expert known for his calm under pressure. Together, they formed a unit that could handle anything the galaxy threw at them. Doc Kane turned to face them, his expression grim but resolute. "We've got one shot at this," he said, his voice steady. "The Council thinks we'll roll over and take their ruling like cowards. We're going to show them how wrong they are." Myra stepped forward, her arms crossed. "What exactly is the plan, sir?" "You said we're hitting the Aegis Prime, but how do we pull that off without starting an interstellar war?" Kane nodded, appreciating her directness. "We infiltrate, disable key systems, and deliver a message they won't forget. No killing, just enough force to make our point. If we play this right, they'll see us as more than primitives. They'll see us as survivors." Theo raised an eyebrow. "Sounds simple enough until you remember the Aegis Prime is basically a floating fortress. How do we even get close?" "That's where Dr. Ruiz comes in," Kane replied. Gesturing to Elena, she held up a small device, no larger than a coin, and smiled confidently. "This is a cloaking module I've been working on," she explained. "It bends light and energy signatures around the ship, making it invisible to sensors. We can slip past their defenses undetected, as long as we don't fire any weapons while cloaked." Javier leaned against the wall, his arms folded. "And once we're inside? What then?" "We split into teams," Kane answered. Theo, you'll work with Elena to shut down their communications and security systems. Mira and Javier will handle anyone who tries to stop us. My job is to find the Valdraxis officer responsible for what happened on Epsilon 9. He needs to see exactly what happens when you mess with humanity. There was a moment of silence as the weight of the mission settled over the group. They all knew the risks. If they failed, the consequences would be catastrophic, not just for them, but for every human in the galaxy. But failure wasn't an option. Not after what had happened to Liam. Sergeant Mira broke the silence first. Permission to speak freely, sir? Go ahead, Kane said. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. You're doing this for your son, aren't you? For Liam. Kane didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stared out at the stars again, his jaw tightening. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer, tinged with emotion. This isn't just about Liam. It's about every human who's ever been looked down on, treated like dirt because we're new or different. The Valdraxis think they can walk all over us, but they're wrong. This isn't just revenge, it's justice. No one argued. They understood now why Kane was so determined. His anger wasn't blind. It was focused, driven by a desire to protect not just his family, but his entire species. With renewed resolve, the team set to work finalizing their preparations. Hours later, the Iron Gauntlet slipped away from Earth's orbit, its engines whispering quietly as it activated the cloaking module. On the bridge, Kane watched as the massive silhouette of the Aegis Prime appeared on the view screen. Even cloaked, the sight of the Council warship was intimidating. Its sheer size made the Iron Gauntlet look like a speck in comparison. Cloak holding steady, Theo reported from his station. They haven't detected us yet. Good, Kane said. Prepare the boarding pods. We move in 10 minutes. As the countdown began, the tension aboard the ship grew palpable. Each member of the strike team double-checked their gear, ensuring everything was in place. Weapons were loaded, tools were secured, and helmets were tested for air seals. When the time came, they filed into the boarding pods. Their faces set with determination. The pods detached from the Iron Gauntlet and drifted silently toward the Aegis Prime. Using precise calculations, they latched onto the outer hull of the Council warship, their magnetic clamps securing them firmly in place. One by one, the strike team climbed out, attaching themselves to the surface with grappling hooks and magnetic boots. The cold void of space surrounded them, silent and unforgiving. Kane led the way, guiding his team toward an access hatch marked on their maps. With practiced efficiency, Theo pried open the hatch using a plasma cutter, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft beyond. One by one, they climbed inside, sealing the hatch behind them. Inside the Aegis Prime, the air was thick with the hum of machinery. Alien voices echoed faintly through the walls, speaking languages none of the humans could understand. The team moved quickly, sticking to the shadows as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. Their goal was a central hub where the ship's main systems were controlled. When they reached the hub, Theo and Elena got to work immediately, connecting their devices to the alien consoles. Lights flickered as they bypassed security protocols, disabling cameras and locking doors to prevent interference. Within minutes, chaos erupted throughout the ship as alarms blared and systems went offline. They know something's wrong, Myra whispered, her weapon drawn. But they won't know where we are. Not for long, Javier added, peering around a corner. We've got company. Alien guards rounded the bend, their weapons raised. Without hesitation, Mira opened fire, her shots precise and calculated. The guards fell before they could react, their bodies crumpling to the floor. The rest of the team pressed on, moving deeper into the ship. Meanwhile, Kane followed a separate route, tracking the location of the Valdraxis officer. His instincts told him the alien wouldn't be far from the heart of the ship, where power and control were concentrated. As he approached a heavily guarded door, he signaled to Theo and Elena, who remotely unlocked it for him. Beyond the door was a lavish chamber, filled with opulent furnishings and glowing displays. In the center stood Commander Vrax, the same Valdraxis officer who had assaulted Liam. He turned sharply as Kane entered, his golden armor gleaming in the dim light. "You dare set foot on my ship?" Vrax snarled, drawing a blade-like weapon. "You'll pay for this insolence with your life." Kane didn't flinch. Instead, he raised his hand slowly, showing he wasn't armed. "I'm not here to kill you," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm here to remind you of something important." Vrax sneered, stepping closer. "And what might that be?" "That humanity doesn't bow to bullies," Kane replied. Before Vrax could react, Kane struck, delivering a swift blow that sent the alien stumbling backward. Though physically smaller, Kane fought with the ferocity of someone fighting for more than just himself. Blow after blow landed, each one fueled by the memory of Liam's tears and the countless indignities humanity had suffered. When it was over, Vrax lay defeated, his armor dented and his pride shattered. Kane knelt beside him, grabbing him by the collar. "Remember this moment," he growled, "because if you ever touch another human child or anyone else, we'll come for you again. And next time, we won't stop." With that, Kane rose and signaled to his team. They regrouped and made their way back to the boarding pods, leaving behind a trail of confusion and fear. As the iron gauntlet decloaked and sped away, Kane allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy had just received a brutal message. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity wasn't afraid. And humanity never backed down, not even in the face of gods among the stars. The iron gauntlet drifted silently through the darkness of space, its cloaking module rendering it invisible to the countless sensors and patrols surrounding the Aegis Prime. The Council warship loomed ahead like a sleeping giant, its vast hull bristling with weapons and lights that illuminated the void. To anyone else, it might have seemed invincible, a fortress floating among the stars. But Captain Elias Kane knew better. Every machine had weak points, every system could be disrupted, and every bully could be brought low if you hit them where it hurt most. On the bridge of the Iron Gauntlet, Kane stood with his hands clasped behind his back, staring at the massive silhouette on the view screen. His team was ready, their gear checked and double-checked, their minds focused. They had trained for moments like this, preparing for the day when humanity would need to prove itself, not with words, but with action. That day had come. Cloak holding steady, Lieutenant Theo Grayson reported from his station, his fingers dancing across the console as he monitored the ship's energy signature. "They haven't spotted us yet." "Good," Kane said, his voice calm but firm. "Prepare the boarding pods. We move in 5 minutes." Behind him, Sergeant Mirachan adjusted her helmet, checking the seals one last time. Her weapon hung loosely at her side, but her grip was tight, ready for anything. Corporal Haber Morales cracked his knuckles. "Leums in knuckles." His demolitions pack strapped securely to his back. Dr. Elena Ruiz stood nearby, clutching a handheld device filled with custom programs designed to disable alien systems. Each member of the strike team had a role to play, and they all knew what was at stake. As the countdown ticked away, Kane turned to face them. "Remember the plan. No unnecessary killing. We're here to send a message, not start a war. Stick together, stay sharp, and trust each other. Let's show them why they should never underestimate us." With those final words, the team filed out of the bridge and into the boarding pods. The small, sleek craft detached from the Iron Gauntlet and drifted toward the Aegis Prime, guided by precise calculations. When they reached the outer hull of the Council warship, magnetic clamps secured the pods in place. One by one, the strike team climbed out, attaching themselves to the surface with grappling hooks and magnetic boots. The cold silence of space surrounded them as they moved across the hull, their movements careful and deliberate. Alien symbols glowed faintly beneath their feet, marking access points and maintenance hatches. Kane led the way, guiding his team toward a narrow shaft marked on their maps. Using a plasma cutter, Theo pried open the hatch, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond. Inside the Aegis Prime, the air was thick with the hum of machinery. Alien voices echoed faintly through the walls, speaking languages none of the humans could understand. The team moved quickly, sticking to the shadows as they navigated the labyrinthine corridors. Their goal was a central hub where the ship's main systems were controlled. When they reached the hub, Theo and Elena got to work immediately, connecting their devices to the alien consoles. Lights flickered as they bypassed security protocols, disabling cameras and locking doors to prevent interference. Within minutes, chaos erupted throughout the ship as alarms blared and systems went offline. "They know something's wrong," Myra whispered, her weapon drawn. "But they won't know where we are." "Not for long," Javier added, peering around a corner. "We've got company." Alien guards rounded the bend, their weapons raised. Without hesitation, Myra opened fire, her shots precise and calculated. The guards fell before they could react, their bodies crumpling to the floor. The rest of the team pressed on, moving deeper into the ship. Meanwhile, Kane followed a separate route, tracking the location of the Valdraxis officer. His instincts told him the alien wouldn't be far from the heart of the ship, where power and control were concentrated. As he approached the heavily guarded door, he signaled to Theo and Elena, who remotely unlocked it for him. Beyond the door was a lavish chamber, filled with opulent furnishings and glowing displays. In the center stood Commander Vrax, the same Valdraxis officer who had assaulted Liam. He turned sharply as Kane entered, his golden armor gleaming in the dim light. "You dare set foot on my ship?" Vrax snarled, drawing a blade-like weapon. "You'll pay for this insolence with your life." Kane didn't flinch. Instead, he raised his hand slowly, showing he wasn't armed. "I'm not here to kill you," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I'm here to remind you of something important." Vrax sneered, stepping closer. "And what might that be?" "That humanity doesn't bow to bullies," Kane replied. Before Vrax could react, Kane struck, delivering a swift blow that sent the alien stumbling backward. Though physically smaller, Kane fought with the ferocity of someone fighting for more than just himself. Blow after blow landed, each one fueled by the memory of Liam's tears and the countless indignities humanity had suffered. When it was over, Vrax lay defeated, his armor dented and his pride shattered. Kane knelt beside him, grabbing him by the collar. "Remember this moment," he growled, "because if you ever touch another human child or anyone else, we'll come for you again. And next time, we won't stop." With that, Kane rose and signaled to his team. They regrouped and made their way back to the boarding pods, leaving behind a trail of confusion and fear. As the Iron Gauntlet decloaked and sped away, Kane allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy had just received a brutal message. Humanity wasn't weak. Humanity wasn't afraid. And humanity never backed down, not even in the face of gods among the stars. Back aboard the Iron Gauntlet, the strike team gathered on the bridge, adrenaline still coursing through their veins. The mission had been a success, but there was no time to celebrate. The Council and the Valdraxis would respond soon, and humanity needed to be ready. Kane turned to his crew, his expression serious. "This isn't over. The Council will call this an act of war, and they'll try to punish us. But we've shown them that we won't tolerate injustice. We've shown them that we're willing to fight for what's right. Myra nodded, her eyes blazing with determination. "What's next, sir?" Kane stared out at the stars, his mind already racing with possibilities. "We prepare. We fortify Earth and our colonies. And when they come for us, we'll be waiting. Because this isn't just about today. This is about tomorrow and every day after that." The crew exchanged determined glances, their resolve stronger than ever. They had struck a blow against arrogance and cruelty, proving that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with the greatest powers in the galaxy. But the battle was far from over. The real test was yet to come. As the Iron Gauntlet vanished into the depths of space, the galaxy watched and waited. The Deathworlders had spoken, and their message was clear. Harm one of us, and you harm us all. The aftermath of the assault on the Aegis Prime rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. News of humanity's daring raid spread faster than anyone could have anticipated. Carried by whispers in alien taverns, reports from neutral observers, and encrypted transmissions intercepted by curious species. The Council warship, once a symbol of unshakable authority, now bore the scars of humiliation, a stark reminder that even the mighty could bleed. On board the Iron Gauntlet, Captain Elias Kane stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. His reflection shimmered faintly in the glass, his face etched with exhaustion, but also quiet satisfaction. They had done what many thought impossible, struck back against one of the most powerful factions in the galaxy, without igniting outright war, at least for now. But Kane knew better than to celebrate too soon. The real consequences were only beginning to unfold. Back aboard the Aegis Prime, chaos reigned supreme. Systems slowly came back online as engineers scrambled to repair the damage caused by the human strike team. Council members argued fiercely in emergency sessions, their voices rising above the usual diplomatic decorum. Some demanded immediate retaliation against humanity, calling them terrorists who needed to be crushed before they grew bolder. Others hesitated, wary of provoking a species known for its unpredictability and resilience. After all, no one had expected humans to infiltrate the Aegis Prime, let alone humiliate a high-ranking Valdraxis officer. Commander Vrax paced furiously in his quarters, his golden armor tarnished with dents and scratches. His pride burned hotter than any physical wound. For centuries, the Valdraxis had ruled through fear and dominance, cowing lesser species into submission. Now, a group of primitives had made fools of them, exposing their vulnerabilities for the entire galaxy to see. Vrax clenched his fists, vowing silently that this insult would not go unanswered. Humanity would pay dearly, but first, he needed allies willing to act. Meanwhile, protests erupted on dozens of worlds. Beings who had once dismissed humans as weak newcomers began to view them differently. Stories of the raid spread like wildfire, accompanied by images of Commander Vrax kneeling before Captain Kane, his arrogance stripped away. On some planets, crowds gathered outside council embassies, chanting slogans of support for humanity. Justice for the Deathworlders became a rallying cry among oppressed groups tired of being trampled by stronger species. For humanity itself, the response was mixed. Back on Earth, news of the mission sparked heated debates. Some hailed Kane and his team as heroes, brave warriors who had defended their honor and sent a clear message to the galaxy. Others worried about the potential fallout, fearing that the Council might declare war or impose crippling sanctions. Despite these concerns, one thing was undeniable. Humanity's reputation had changed overnight. No longer seen as mere upstarts, humans were now viewed as dangerous and unpredictable, a force to be reckoned with. Ambassador Tessa Rhodes found herself caught in the middle of it all. Summoned to another emergency session of the Galactic Council, she prepared for what promised to be the toughest negotiation of her career. As she entered the chamber, The tension was palpable. Representatives glared at her, their expressions ranging from anger to thinly veiled curiosity. When she took her seat, the room fell silent, every eye fixed on her. "Ambassador Rhodes," said the council's presiding officer, a tall, insectoid being with iridescent wings. "Your people have committed an egregious act of aggression against the council and the Valdraxis. We demand an explanation and assurances that such actions will not occur again." Rhodes rose to her feet, her hands steady despite the weight of the moment. She adjusted her glasses, taking a deep breath before speaking. "With respect, esteemed members, my people did not act out of malice or a desire for conflict. We acted because we were left with no other choice. The council failed to address a grave injustice, one that affected not just a single child, but our entire species. We sought only to make our position clear. Humanity will not tolerate abuse or oppression, regardless of the source." Her words hung in the air, met with murmurs of disbelief and grudging admiration. Several representatives exchanged uneasy glances, clearly divided on how to respond. Finally, the presiding officer spoke again. "Your actions have destabilized the fragile balance of power in the galaxy. If we do not punish you, others may interpret this as permission to defy us. What assurance can you offer that this will not happen again?" Rhodes hesitated for a moment, choosing her next words carefully. "I cannot promise that humanity will ever bow to threats or injustice. That is not who we are. But I can assure you of this. We seek peace, not war. We wish to coexist with the rest of the galaxy, but on equal terms. Harm us, and we will defend ourselves. Respect us, and we will extend the same courtesy." The chamber erupted into arguments once more, but Rhodes had planted a seed of doubt. Many council members privately admitted that humanity's audacity had earned them a measure of respect. Perhaps crushing them outright wasn't the wisest course of action, not when doing so might inspire rebellion among weaker species. As the debates dragged on, Captain Kane delivered a final message to the council via hologram. Standing tall in full uniform, his expression stern yet composed, he addressed the assembled representatives directly. "We don't care about your titles or your power," he began, his voice carrying both strength and conviction. "We care about justice. Harm one of us and you harm all of us. Remember this day, not because we struck back, but because we showed mercy. We could have killed Commander Vrax. We chose not to. Think carefully about whether you want to test us further." When the transmission ended, silence filled the chamber. For the first time, many council members truly understood the depths of human resolve. These weren't primitives. They were survivors, fighters who refused to yield, even when faced with overwhelming odds. And while some still called for punishment, others quietly advocated for restraint, recognizing that humanity's defiance had shifted the balance of power in ways they couldn't ignore. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy settled into an uneasy truce. The council issued a formal condemnation of humanity's actions, but stopped short of declaring war. Instead, they imposed limited sanctions, more symbolic than crippling, and opened channels for dialogue. It was a small victory, but a significant one. Humanity had proven it could stand up to the greatest powers in the galaxy and walk away intact. On board the Iron Gauntlet, Kane reflected on everything that had transpired. He thought of Liam, whose wide-eyed innocence had nearly been stolen by cruelty. He thought of his crew, who had risked everything to send a message. And he thought of the countless humans across the stars who looked to him not just as a leader, but as a symbol of hope. As the ship prepared to dock at Earth's orbital station, Kane turned to his team. "This isn't the end," he said, his tone firm but proud. "It's just the beginning. The galaxy knows who we are now. Let's make sure they never forget." The crew nodded, their faces set with determination. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as humans always had. Through hardship, through danger, through fear, they would endure. Because that's what Deathworlders did. That's what made them unstoppable. And somewhere deep within Kane, a spark ignited a quiet certainty that humanity's journey among the stars was only just beginning.